So as I take a breath in, I recognize the relationship between the air and my lungs, that my body is met by this life wherever I am. And so I acknowledge that one life, the life within me, the life that surrounds me. It is this presence of life, this eternal power everywhere at once. It is always giving, always creating from itself in an unlimited way. I see that with my eyes as I recognize its beauty and its presence, its givingness, support of everything that it creates. Because it is all there is, I know that I am created by it, from itself. In every moment I am here, alive and present, because it is alive and present. And I know, because that is the truth of me, that it is the truth of all things, all people are filled and activated and alive with it. And that everything, every place I go, I am met by it. In people and relationships, in experiences and opportunities, all is open to me, for spirit to express itself and reveal itself, to share in that experience that I have as it, through me and for me. And I'm so grateful for this. Grateful for all that flows through me, for all that I release to open more, going more deeply into its presence, its nature, opening to experience that light and that love and that power that is here for me and here for all. And so I give great thanks for the knowing of this truth, for how it works, how it serves and supports all life, for it is life. And knowing that I and all are truly blessed, I simply give this over to that power that creates all, making all manifest. And I simply state, and so it is.
So this whole year, we're working on a theme of growing deeper and rising higher. Growing deeper. And then from that rootedness, from that depth, rising higher. And that rising isn't something we have to force to happen, right? The plant that sends its roots down to the ground doesn't then have to sit there and go, I got to make myself rise and bloom. It just is a natural process, yes? So as we send down our roots, as we get into as we grow, as we expand, that process unfolds us naturally. We unfold into it. We let it work us as we work it. And so this month we're looking at our roots of science of mind, of the teaching that we are, and taking a look at that. And so last week I talked about the ideas of whatever idea we have of the infinite divine isn't enough. It's bigger than anything we can ever think, say, name, any of that stuff. But that doesn't mean we stop, right? That doesn't mean we don't learn more about it. So today we're going to, our talk embodies the first two chapters of the Science of Mind textbook, and it's called The Thing Itself and How It Works. Ernest starts off with, Ernest Holmes developed this. This is Ernest, by the way, back here. He's the person who started this whole thing off 100 years ago, and a little over 100 years ago. And he says the divine plan, and when we say a divine plan, it's not that there's some big guy in the sky that's got a plan for you, and you should be this, and you should have this job, and or anything like that. It's just this divine unfolding, if you will. So the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Bondage, limitation, being constricted, living constricted lives, is not God ordained. There's nothing in the universe that has an intention for us to have a limited life. Okay. Which is probably contrary to what many of us grew up being taught. But that's not the truth. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul, and the truth, the capital T truth, points to freedom under law. And so we're going to unwrap what that means today. We're going to talk about that. So this begins the foundation of what we believe, what we teach, the roots from which we evolve and grow. So last week I talked about the Tao being beyond any ideas we could have of it, yet that doesn't mean we don't explore it, yes? And then share what we discover, what we know of it so far, as we continue to expand. Scientists right now have the Hubble telescope and the James Webb telescope, and they're using them together to learn more about the universe and what it really is comprised of. And they're finding that some of their models and some of their images they thought they had of the universe aren't true anymore, weren't accurate. But that doesn't mean that we should just stop. We have to go and explore more. We learn more. And the models we had were what got us up to the point where we can see something more. Yes? If we had stopped by saying, well, it's just a dome over the flat earth with stars, poked in it and a chariot dragging the sun across the sky, we would have never gone into space. Okay? So we go explore. We learn more as we go. Life is about exploration and learning. Friday, my next-door neighbor and I were installing new garage lights in my garage. And we learned as we went. Which means we got it halfway up there and said, no, this doesn't work right. And we had to pull it all apart and then redo it again in a completely different way. But we learned as we go, and I now have new garage lights. And so learning is what we do in this process. It's not that we're doing something wrong. It's just this is how we learn. We all learn to walk by falling down and getting up. We learn how to ride bikes by doing the same thing. So what we're talking about today is our idea about the thing itself, this thing itself. And Ernest fully understood that there is more. In fact, every once in a while he would say, this is what I know based on the best wisdom of all of the world so far, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So you could be in the wrong teaching. But it was based on the best human wisdom to date. So in this initial chapter, he simply calls it the thing itself to take it out of the realm of giving it religious names, right? So we don't have that association. I know some people react when we use the word God. It's like, no, we're not talking about a big bearded Santa Claus kind of guy in the sky who's kind of temperamental and all this. We're not talking about that. We're talking about an infinite presence and infinite beingness. So he simply calls it the thing itself to pull it away from any specific religious context. And he calls out two aspects of this oneness. He says the great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being. And we approach love through the law. This then is the teaching, love and law. As the love of God is perfect, so the law of God is perfect. Now, what the heck does that mean? He says that the study of the science of mind is a study of what we can call first cause, spirit, mind, that invisible essence from which everything else emanates, from which everything else arises. And that this understanding is necessary if we're going to create results. See, if I don't understand electricity and I go to wire up my garage lights, I might not create the results I want, yes? Okay? So it's good to understand the principles of the universe if we're going to create results. And the creation of tangible results is what reveals what we would call the hidden principles. In other words, when I use electricity, I'm using the invisible principles of electricity, yes? I can't see those principles, but I can see the results and use it, yes? Okay? And so as we play with this, what we call the law, we can't see the law, but we can use the law. And so let's unpack love and law. So most spiritual traditions say something to the effect that this infinite thing is love. Is love. One of the people who rearranged my thinking about this a couple of decades ago was a New Thought writer named Emily Cady, who said, God is not loving. That is, God is not a being that is loving. God is love itself. See, a being that is loving could also be a being that is not loving. But love itself can't stop. You know, a friend of mine says that minister friend of mine says that God is so dysfunctional that it's just sloppily in love with everything. Right? That's you and me and everything. Many people who have mystical experiences, I had one when I was 13 and another one later in life, report a sense of immense love as the nature of the divine. Just this immense, just deep, beyond words, love that is the nature of the divine. In the story that Jesus in the Jesus story that's labeled the prodigal son, you notice in the story Jesus never mentions a prodigal son, right? It's somebody labeled it that later on. But it was in that story, the son returns home after his wanderings, full of guilt and unworthiness, and says, I'm not worthy to be your son, and all that stuff that we sometimes say when we're feeling low and guilty and unworthy. And the father in this conversation ignores that. Doesn't even address it. Just says, hey, you're back. I'm so glad. Here's some new clothes. Here's a ring. We got a party going. Because they knew you were coming. And never stopped loving him. Jesus also points out that God makes his sun to shine or rain to fall, depending on which version you're hearing, on the heads of the just and the unjust alike. Meaning there's nothing we have to do or not do to experience this ever-present love. Breathe that in for a moment. There's nothing you can do or not do that will take you out of this infinite love. Now, we can forget it, but it's there anyway. Yes? Right now there's clouds over our head, but there's a sun still shining, yes? Just because we have clouds doesn't mean the sun stops shining. It's there. So this infinite presence doesn't judge, it just loves. However, our experience of life, our experience of this love is through what Ernest calls the law, by which he defines as the infinite mind in action. And we can think of love as the beingness of the infinite and law as the doingness of the infinite. And the law can be simply summarized as the law of cause and effect. And it's been said so many ways. It's done unto you as you believe. What you put out comes back to you, all that sort of thing. That's the law, the infinite law. So the infinite love is completely, intimately personal. You and I are each love individualized, love personified. Nudge your neighbor and say to them, you are love personified. Your love with skin on it, okay? Your love with skin on it, okay? So the infinite love is completely, intimately personal. The law, however, is completely impersonal, and by that I mean it works the same for everybody. It doesn't care whether you're good or bad. It doesn't care, your gender, your height, your age, anything. It doesn't care about any of that. Just like electricity, just like gravity, it works the same for everybody, right? Okay? So that's the law. It works the same for everyone, everywhere, all the time. In the prodigal son story, again, the number one son, the one who didn't go home, or didn't leave home, if you remember right, he comes back and the party's going on and he's been out in the fields and he comes in and he sits there and goes, well, how come he's getting a party and I didn't? You've never thrown me a party like that, right? And he represents people who are ignorant of their ability to use the law. And the father basically looks at him and says, all that I have has always been yours. All that the infinite presence has always been ours. Do we ask? See, the kid never asked. The kid never said, I'd like to have a party. Ernest says that there is no limit to the law, but there appears to be a limit to people's understanding of it. And this is what we're here to do, is expand our understanding of it and then expand our embodiment of it. So we embody peace, we embody love, we embody greater joy. He goes on to say the thing, which is the thought put into law, the thing that makes us sick is the thing which heals us. Our thinking makes it so either way. We need not look for a law of sickness and a law of health. There is only one law. I think of I love to garden, and the soil will grow, and the water, the rain, and the water and the sun will grow anything I plant, right? It doesn't sit there and go, well, I only want to grow radishes. You can't plant carrots here. It doesn't do that. It will grow whatever I plant into it. And whatever I plant, if I plant a carrot seed or carrot, whatever, however they start, carrots aren't my thing. I'm not going to get tomatoes, am I? Right? I'll get sunflowers, right, if I plant, and so whatever we plant into the law is what grows. I think of the law as being like a movie projector. There's a source of pure light. And then it's set up to project that light onto the screen of life. It doesn't care what movie runs in front of it, right? Right? We unconsciously or consciously, often unconsciously, choose what film will run in front of the light, and then we'll experience the results of that choice out on the screen of life. The projector doesn't care. The projector doesn't even know what film we're running. It just projects. And then when we see that projection in full color IMAX 3D surround sound projecting onto the screen of our life, we might cry out, wait, how could this happen? What in the heck? Yeah. And we don't sit there and go, I'm the one who made the film. People who don't understand the law ask questions like, how could God let this, whatever this is, happen? And that's sort of like saying, how could gravity let that vase that slipped through my fingers fall and shatter? It's like gravity didn't let it or not let it, right? Gravity is just being gravity. How conscious are we? We have to let go of the myth that there is a God out there or up there that is making things happen or not happen, or that there is another God that's been called the devil down below making things happen or not happen. It's simply our use of law, of this infinite law, consciously or unconsciously, to create results we like or don't like. And it is by our thinking, our beliefs, which are strongly held thoughts and emotionally charged and embedded within us thoughts, that we create our experience of life. It's not the little whim. Ernest, likes to say that we don't get what we wish for, we get what we are. We get what we are embodying within us. That song was perfect for that. I can fluff my auras and do my chakras and go to church and feel really good, but if I'm not really truly living peace, embodying peace, then all this stuff out here will throw me off. All the stuff on the screen of life will cause me to feel whatever I feel. Guess what? It doesn't cause me to feel. I observe it, and then I create feelings based on my past experiences, based on my thoughts, based on my feelings. So we create our experience of life. And note that I did not say we create life, because we don't. Life, capital L life, is the expression of the infinite oneness, simply is. It is what it is. But how we experience it is a result of our thinking. So the person who believes that nobody loves them will experience life that way, no matter how many people are kind and loving toward them. We put a filter on that says, I'm not going to see that part of life. I'm just going to reinforce this belief that I have that nobody loves me. And we'll gather all that evidence, and the mind will exclude all the other evidence. So our thoughts create our experience of this infinite potentiality of life. This is why Ernest says we don't get what we wish for, we get what we are. The infinite possibilities of life are fully available, but we only access what we already know and feel safe around. And that feeling of safety is usually based on familiarity with that which we find comfortable. In other words, that which I already know. You know, I have a daily reader with an author named Mark Nepo, and I was reading this week, and he talks about a friend of his who was cleaning his fish tank. And he took all the fish out, and he put the fish into the bathtub while he was cleaning the tank. And he spent a couple of hours getting all the slime off of the walls and, all that stuff, and really giving it a thorough cleaning. And about 3 hours later, went back to the bathtub. And here are all the fish clustered together in about the size of their tank. They had all of the tub to swim in, but they didn't. And that's oftentimes how we are. We are clustered together with our familiar thoughts, our familiar feelings, our familiar ways of being, and though there's a huge tub to swim in, we stay where it's comfortable, where we know, and where it feels safe. Take a breath. Until we're willing to be adventurous. And that's what the rising higher is about. As we grow deeper and we rise higher, are we willing to be adventurous? Are we willing to say, I want something new and greater than I've ever experienced before? And until we're willing to be adventurous, we're like those little fish huddled into a little pond, if you will, inside the tub. And this is why people stay in dysfunctional relationships. This is why they stay in dysfunctional situations of all kind, work and financial prosperity, because they identify themselves as that. I am the kind of person who has this experience of life. Take a breath. And even though there's a big tub available, the little make-believe deep is what we call normal. All that I have has always been yours. All has always been yours. Holmes says that by thinking, we can bring into our experience whatever we desire if, notice there's always an if, right? If we think correctly, which is to say in alignment with the highest good, and if we become an embodiment of our thoughts. That's what I was talking about with the embodying peace from that song. If we become an embodiment of our thoughts, not by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth, the capital T truth. So, if the fish knew that there wasn't a wall there, they would just naturally swim. But they're so conditioned to believe there's a wall there that they don't bother to explore. Yes? And we are conditioned, all of us, myself included, everybody, are conditioned to the certain, what we think are walls in our lives beyond which we must not or cannot go. When he says we have to do it through the truth, he defines that as being that which is, not that which we would like it to be or wish it was, but that which just is. It's understanding the laws of the universe. It's letting go of the idea that life is just a series of random accidents, or it's controlled by some impossible to understand God up in the sky or below the earth or whatever, but that we live in a universe of order and law, even if we don't yet understand all of it. Even if we don't yet understand all of it, even if it doesn't quite make sense to us yet, it's still there. He says, the road to freedom lies not through mysteries or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of nature's forces and laws. The road to freedom lies through the intelligent use of nature's forces and laws. Ernest compares using our thought to creating a mold in this infinite substance. Like you would create a mold to hold something. And like a movie projector, this substance simply conforms to the mold we create. Here's the good news. If you don't like the current result, you can change the mold. That's the other core of our teaching. Change what we think. Change what we're putting into it. Change what we believe, and this out here changes. Change the film. Are you trying to give me a sign? Just that much. Just a little bit. A tiny little change in thinking produces, out here, a major shift. If we don't like the current result, we can create a new mold, remembering that it is not our wishes, but our deeply held beliefs that are creating. We must realize that there is only one law, one mind in the universe. Where we use it, it becomes individualized as our law. So if I have a belief in lack and limitation in my life, then that's how the law shows up as my law of my life. It's not how the infinite law is of what's available to me, but it's what I have said, and is my reality, my experience of reality. I don't have enough. Are we good with that? Okay. No? A few people. What we think of as our individual mind. We all run around, we go, well, I'm me. I'm individual. Actually, you're not. There's only one mind. Take a breath. We individualize it. It is individualizing itself as us, but there's only this one mind. We get to use it in whatever direction, in whatever way, in whatever creation or creative process we want to, but we're using it. And because we are beings who have evolved into the potential for conscious co-creation through the freedom to create using this one mind, you got that? We have evolved into being able to co-create with the universe. Something that, say, a rock doesn't have. Something that even animals that don't have the consciousness that we do don't have. We have the ability to think something new and have a result show up differently. So because we've evolved into that potential for conscious co-creation, we have the ability to create great freedom or great bondage, great suffering, great lack, limitation, and disease. The law, again, doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't care what film I'm running in front of it. And the infinite love just is love no matter what we're creating, right? It doesn't sit there and go, it's not a good idea, let's not do that. It just loves us as we're creating misery. I remember I've shared with you one time of being in the midst of a deep self-pity party about a relationship that break up, feeling really deeply sad, and all of a sudden feeling this deep joy that was underneath it. It's like, what the blankety blank was that? And it's like, that's always there. The infinite love is always there. Ernest says, how much can one demonstrate? I know Denny loves this quote. How much can one demonstrate? Just what one can believe. How much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? What that means, those of you who went through the intentions retreat with me know we spent a little bit of time working on something that I called counter-intentions. I want to lose weight, but I want to keep on eating all those pastries. I want to get healthier and more fit, but I don't want to get off the couch because my favorite TV programs are coming on. And besides, it's January and it's cold and it's raining and I don't want to. Okay, those are the counterintentions. That's what our mind denies. It's like, I'm going to say I want this, but underneath that, there's a layer going, no. Guess which one manifests? No. Because we have more emotional attachment to it. So how much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever that is, that much we can have. We get whatever it is that we can cleanly let through us and say, yes, this is. I'm going to close with a reading. It's from the other reader that I love in the mornings is the 365 Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. This little book here. And so yesterday's reading was called The Impersonal Law of Personal Good. The impersonal law, and personal good is whose good? My good. The impersonal law of personal good. He starts off with a quote out of Matthew. It says, all power is given unto me in heaven and earth. And then he says, it is interesting to note that while Jesus said that all power was given to him in heaven and earth, at another time he said that he of himself could do nothing. This sounds like a contradiction until we understand the subtlety of its meaning. Jesus realized that there is but one power and one presence, and he knew that we all live in this presence and by this power. He also knew that when he surrendered himself to the presence, that is, when he thought the thoughts of God, then the power would automatically respond to him. Therefore, in surrendering himself to the presence of God, of good, he commanded the law of good. This is fundamental. Buffy likes to say, if we want fabulous, we call fabulous, and fabulous comes. If we want good, we call good. That's surrendering to the law of good. We align ourselves with that. We use the law of good, which of itself is entirely impersonal and independent of us, like all other laws of nature. Responding to the presence of love, we use the law of good. That is what meditation, affirmation, and prayer means. We get to call in what we want. So, 3 spiritual practices that I'm going to invite you to do this week. The first one is take time to assess what you've currently created in your life. Just notice your life. Notice what you love about it. Notice what you don't love about it. Don't beat yourself up for the stuff you don't love about it. Just notice. Use what I like to call compassionate curiosity. Okay? Because you've used this law to create both the things you love and the things you don't love. It's the same law. Then the second practice is pick an area that you don't love and ask 2 questions. Number 1, what must I believe? What must I deeply believe to create this result in my life? What must I believe that this is what's showing up? I'm telling myself that I'm believing this, but this is what's showing up. This is, again, that song was beautiful for that. I believe in peace, but I just ran into my ex at the grocery store and now I'm not in peace anymore. Because I believe that when I run into my ex, I'm not in peace. Okay? So, what must I deeply believe to create this result is the first question. The second question is, what would I rather create instead? It's good to know what you want instead of what you don't want, yes? Okay. And then the third practice is contemplate that new result. In other words, sit there and dwell on it. Let it get jiggy with it, to quote Will Smith from a long time ago. And the beliefs that would go with that result. In other words, what must I believe, truly believe, that would be in alignment with having that result show up? Ask, how can I embody those beliefs? Are you willing to play with that this week? Great. So we have an affirmation. Say this with me. I use the law to create greater love, joy, wisdom, and peace in my life now. I use the law to create greater love, greater joy, greater wisdom, and greater peace in my life now. We're going to do this one more time. Get your body involved in it, yes? An expansive move, whatever that feels like for you. Get your body involved in it. I use the law to create greater love, greater joy, greater wisdom, and greater freedoms in my life now. And so it is. And so I do. Thank you.